Season 5, Episode 17 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers. I am Jonathan Lipskin. To my technically right, but I'm pointing left, to Sam Fetterman. And below me is Pat Gallahan. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our off-season / preseason preview series. First off, Pat, how are you? It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. We all talk pretty frequently, though. But yeah, it's been a while. I'm excited to talk some Big Five basketball. That's sort of my specialty. But yeah, I'm happy to be back on.
So the Big Five, real quick, before I go over to Sam to see how he's doing, is
what was that for?
You deserve it. You know that. So the Big Five, for people unfamiliar with the Philadelphia area, is actually 6 teams with the addition of Drexel into the Classic. You have Drexel, LaSalle, Temple, Penn, St. Joe's, and Villanova, all the Philadelphia area schools. We'll be talking about all 6 now that the Classic has 6. We were thinking about doing a Villanova preview independently, but we're going to put them into this episode. Sam, since I was so rude to you at the start of the episode, we'll start with you. I'll ask you this. Who intrigues you most from this group of 6 teams in the Philadelphia area?
It's Temple for me. I have them at the back end of my top 100. I think that the way that Adam Fisher coached when his players were actually trying last year.
Allegedly.
When his players were allegedly trying last year was very impressive in the conference tournament. He goes out into the transfer portal, picks up 2 big-time guards in Lynn Greer and Jamal Mashburn, brings in Jameel Brown. They bring in Elijah Gray from Fordham, who can really play. Bring back Steve Settle, Shane Dezzoni, Matteo Piccarelli, Zion Stanford. Mo Kaita comes in very late, gives them a little bit more beef in the front court. It's a pretty new team that replaces a lot of the really inefficient talent that clogged up the backcourt last year. And I think that they'll have a better backcourt, and they could really sneak up on some teams this year.
Pat, you attend the university.
Yes.
Why don't you just build off that? Give us your thoughts on what Temple's got this year, and how, and maybe the better question is how they take that next step.
So last year, obviously, pretty inefficient team on offense. The shooting just wasn't there to run the type of offense that Adam Fisher wanted to run. They wanted to get out and shoot a ton of threes. Last year, that wasn't there. Hyseer Miller, I know we talk about him a lot. We joke about him a lot. Just wasn't meant to be the guy running that offense. But I think with Jamal Mashburn,
the guy running the offense at Virginia Tech, I don't know what Mike Young is thinking.
Yeah, well, it's I think with Jamal Mashburn, a guy that can really create off the dribble for himself and primarily scores from the outside, really helps run this offense a little bit better. Jameel Brown, I think, will play a lot of the minutes that Matteo Piccarelli did last year and be used in a similar way. Way better on-ball defender than Matteo Piccarelli was, but both can still shoot at a high clip, especially off the catch and shoot for Jameel Brown. Lynn Greer will be really, really interesting to watch for this team. A lot of his scoring done from the inside, a little bit better of a playmaker in terms of passing than Jameel Brown and Jamal Mashburn. You look at some of the freshmen, though. Dylan Batee from Texas went viral last year for scoring 49 points in, I think, 7 minutes or something like that. Really physical, could have some good spot minutes as far as the newcomers go. But this backcourt is much, much, much better than it was last year. And I did feel somewhat confident in the conference tournament with the backcourt last year, but this year, heading into the season, there you go 4 guys deep, especially with Shane Dezzoni coming off the bench who can put up double-digit points. The front court, still a little bit of a concern. Not that big, but if they're trying to get out and run on offense, I'm not that concerned about that. Steve Settle is a pretty good interior defender, especially when it comes to altering and blocking shots. Elijah Gray, good athlete. I am really excited for this year's Temple team. I have a lot higher hopes. Last year, I had no expectations, but year 2 of Adam Fisher, I remember I texted you guys when Jamal Mashburn Jr. committed to Temple. That was a big deal that Fish was able to land a player of that caliber. So the program's heading in a good direction. I'm excited for this year's team.
Yeah, Pat,
just to kind
Pat, you're exactly right with that. Jamal Mashburn isn't just any other recruiting win. It's a symbol to the Philly area, to the rest of this league, that Temple is playing for keeps at this point.
Yeah.
Jamal Mashburn Jr. averaged 19.1 points per game in the Mountain West 2 years ago. He averaged 14 points a game on a team that made the NCAA tournament and probably should have made it as an at-large last year. This is not just a transfer get that could be really good. This is a transfer get where Jamal Mashburn Jr. was being sought after by higher tier programs, but decides to come and play for Temple. Yes, there's already the relationship there. Adam Fisher knew Jamal Mashburn from when he was recruiting him, I believe, back at Penn State, or was it all the way back? Yeah, when Fisher was in Miami. I'm not sure exactly how long ago that was, but yeah, I just look at this recruiting win and then being able to steal Lynn Greer from the city rival St. Joe's is another big time recruiting win. It's saying Temple is coming here. They are playing serious right now. This is not just any other roster building. They are building a roster that is above the station of what their program is at this point, and then in an idea to further their program very far down the road.
Yeah, and before Johnson, when you said playing for keeps, I agree with that a ton because they're playing now. They're playing to win now. There is rebuilding in college basketball. It will never be faster, or it has never been faster than it is right now. And Adam Fisher in a program that doesn't have a lot of resources prove that you can revamp a roster like that. They committed Brown, Greer, and Mashburn all within a week of each other. And those are three high impact players for this program. But yeah, there's a ton of buzz around Mashburn specifically, and Lynn Greer, who picked against Temple twice. Picked Dayton coming out of high school over Temple. He played at Roman Catholic, which is literally on the same street as Temple, right on Broad. And then he picked St. Joe's after he transferred from Dayton. So that was a big recruiting win. Especially it helps that his dad, Temple legend, second all time in scoring, is on staff. So it made that commitment a little bit easier, but still a big recruiting win.
Yeah, really, you guys hit on everything. Just to kind of go off what you guys said, the backcourt's obviously loaded. I think this is a team that could maybe win the American. Like we've seen Memphis collapse before.
But yeah, Paul Noah will not be happy with that.
Yeah, we've seen Memphis collapse before, and the American is not a bad league. Other teams step up. I think an at-large bid, while unlikely, is possible.
Yeah.
And you guys kind of said it, but Philadelphia high school talent's really good. And this is a point we'll hit home with not just Temple, but some other schools as well. And if Temple can just go in and win some recruiting battles from their own city, as well as build through the portal like they did this offseason, this is a team that can be at the top of the American with their resources year in and year out.
Yeah, and they just won a local recruiting battle with Cam Wallace, who's a 3-star in 247 and on 3. So it is interesting. You see Adam Fisher, local guy, grew up in Berks County, which is directly north of Philadelphia. So hopefully his recruiting connections will help with those local battles.
All right, Pat, I kicked it to Sam first, so let's go to you next. What team outside of the school you attend are you intrigued by from this group?
Last year, I was very high on St. Joe's. I'm equally high this year, but I'm more intrigued because last year I declared it was a win now or leave. It was win or go home for Billy Lang. No longer the case. He has at least 2 more years in that job. Yes, because of the NIL Classic, where they get. Sam, you don't agree?
It's just not good to hear out loud.
No, it is horrible to hear out loud. But they have gotten better every single year under him. Granted, in that first year, they did win 9 games, which was horrible. But you obviously lose Lynn Greer to Temple. And as the saying goes, sometimes the best gets are the one you already have. St. Joe's has immense NIL resources for a school that small, and they used it to keep the best player in the city, Eric Reynolds, on campus. He was last year the best player in Philadelphia. He's better than Eric Dixon. We saw it when he went into Villanova and scored 30 points. Keeping him is why I have them as the favorites to win the Big Five. Obviously, you lose a young player in Chris Esendoko, who was someone I was particularly high on. You bring in Daniel Simpson. You keep Xavier Brown. Another huge get. ESPN has him mocked to go in the first round of the NBA draft this year.
They do?
Yes.
Wow. No way.
They did. Then what? Last time I looked, it was like 27th.
Okay, I love Xavier Brown. That's nuts.
It's high. That's high.
But like, it still says something that St. Joe's has a player that's even remotely that caliber.
When's the last time they had?
DeAndre
Bembry was the last time they did. 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
I can really start here because, or at least go next because you guys kind of took the lead on Temple. St. Joe's is a team that just missed my top 100, literally the first team out, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the talent on the roster. We know that it had everything.
It never does with Billy Lang.
It never has everything to do with the coach, and you have an A10 that is improving, and if Lang does not figure out how to play this team, they will fall behind. And this is not college football. Talent does not matter as much. You have to be able to play together and figure out what you have with your roster. I actually don't mind this roster construction. You have 3 guys that can all handle the ball, and really not all of them, because Derek Simpson I don't see as like a score first guard. Right. Like, not all 3 of them need to go get a bucket. And then you also obviously add Sam, you know how to pronounce his last name, Justice Agbor. And he had a phenomenal year at Harvard. And then Pat, I'm sure you can speak to Steven Solano as well, but this is a guy that, like, I don't know if his numbers will be super great when he's a freshman. I think skill-wise, he's still a little behind. But that guy is a massive human being that I think can make some sort of impact for you this year.
And that's not even to mention Rasheer Fleming, who is one of the best athletes and defenders in the A10. I just look at this St. Joe's team. If they were coached by half of the other coaches in the A10, I would have them as a top 80 team in the country. I don't have them in my top 100, though. I just think that Billy Lang has not proven anything to me. They had a super talented team last year with Lynn Greer, Reynolds, Xavier Brown, Cam Brown, Kreese, DeSandico, Fleming, and they finished 9-9. I'm expecting better than that this year, but I can't be certain.
Yeah. No, that's the thing with Billy Lang. The concerns are there because Sam knows just as much as anyone how high I was on St. Joe's last year. When they lost to Texas A&M Commerce, that was the straw that broke the camel's back on top of their January slide. The only thing stopping me from saying Temple has the best backcourt in the Big Five in the city is St. Joe's.
Yeah, St. Joe's has the best backcourt.
Yeah, they have easily the best backcourt in the Big Five. And they have the best player in the city. And I think that Xavier Brown.
3 high major players in their backcourt.
They do. And they have
two high major starters and a really good high major backup.
Right.
Who was a high major
starter. They don't have the NIL resources because they're playing in the NIL Classic for the next 2 years. So it's a guaranteed $1 million that go in their bank account for the next 2 years, which is the only reason I say that Billy Lang has at least 2 more years at the helm at Hawk Hill. While his results say he shouldn't, it is a really intriguing narrative to follow because he can recruit. He's able to get guys onto campus. It's just that the X's and O's aren't there with the Jimmies and Joes, as corny as it is, but it is true with Billy Lang and one of the other coaches right over town.
All right, let's move on to the next team here. And I'm just, for the sake of this, going to stick in the A10 here since we're already on the subject. LaSalle is losing two high major players, another important player from their team to graduation, and they finished in like the 180s, I want to say, in Ken Palm last year.
And their stud freshman center who transferred to the Penal Academy.
Yeah, this was a team that finished 195 in Ken Palm last year. And it's looking kind of bleak, to be honest. This is a program that does not have the resources that a St. Joe's has, that a Temple has, even.
New arena.
That they do have. The one bright spot, and Sam, I'll start with you on this, is like I know you're an Eric Acker fan from his freshman season at Long Island. He was the one bright spot on that team. So tell me a little bit about Acker.
Wasn't awful.
Huh?
Hey, Tanacopa wasn't awful.
Tell me about Acker, and then tell me whatever else you want to say about this team, I guess. Whatever you think is a bright spot, whatever you think is important for like the future of their program.
Yeah, I think Eric Acker had a really solid freshman season. I know the numbers were pathetically bad. 85.7 offensive rating, 45 true shooting percentage, not a very good 3-point shooter, not very good percentages inside the arc, didn't shoot well from the line. Okay, I know how bad that sounds, but when you watch him,
you have to give the context here too.
Yeah, right. you when you watch him, you have to understand there's no spacing at all. There's no coaching. They're basically running around playing street ball because there's no direction. They don't run any good sets. And Acker had to create a lot. And as one of the youngest players in the country last year, he was like 17 years old throughout the entire season. He was able to make his own way, get to some good spots, and have a lot of really impressive games. Scored 28 against Lemoyne in that win. Scored 23 against Stonehill. 22 against A&M Corpus Christi. 20 against Columbia in a really, really good performance. He's really good at getting to the mid-range spots that he wants. Needs to beef up a little bit to get to the rim. Needs to work on the three-point shot. But the mid-range is there, the touch is there, and the passing ability is there. Now, a player that I think is going to have a big impact for this team and for them and for this team down the road is Deuce Jones, a 6'2", 6'3" guard from Philadelphia, who is a huge scoring guard, put on some big numbers in that postseason tournament that all the COBL guys are tweeting about that I don't know what it's called.
PCL, Philadelphia Catholic League?
No. It was a postseason tournament. It was not the
Oh, yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. Josh Verlin's always tweeting about it.
Yeah, and he scored 51 points in one of those games. Deuce Jones is going to be a stud, whether it's this year or down the road. He's one of the mid-major freshmen that I've planted my flag on. They like Andres Marrero. They think he's going to take a step with Deshaun Shepard, who's already been there for a few years. He's a really solid player. They recently brought in Mackie Tien. I don't know about that. I don't know if you guys remember that. I don't know if you guys
Academy legend Mackie Tien 0-1 against Avon Old Farms lifetime.
But yeah, overall, I don't think there's quite as much talent on this roster as there is the other teams in the A10 or the Big Five. But who knows with Fran Dunphy and Deuce Jones, who's really talented, and Acker, who's talented. They brought in Corey McKeithen too.
Yeah,
don't really know how he fits. Would have been cool to see him play another year at Rider, but we'll see.
You talked about Eric Acker he was used to a street ball system, at LIU. Won't be that
system
much different.
System is a little bit.
Yeah, system. So we're using that pretty freely. Fran Dunphy, obviously you guys know, his offenses can be a lot of ISO ball. It did the same thing at Temple. You saw guys like Shiz Alston really thrive under Fran Dunphy at Temple. I think Eric Acker is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. His offense relies on scoring heavy guards. Like last year, Jameer Brickus scored 41 versus Temple. I saw it with my own eyes. And even when he wouldn't have big scoring nights, he'd still get his shots up. And Dunphy was okay with that. The same thing happened.
I think the idea is that eventually Acker turns into a Brickus type player.
Right. Right. And under Dunphy, that's not a bad bet. You mentioned he was 17 years old playing college basketball last year. Like, he's got a lot of time to develop.
Yeah, I think the idea
He's
here
playing
is
against college basketball teams, so I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
I think the idea here is hopefully like this team's gonna be bad, but like hope the idea is Acker has a good year, Jones has a good year, and you have something to work with, assuming you can keep those two guys in the program for the following year.
Whether Fran is the coach then or not.
Yeah. That LaSalle has been very weird about that whole situation.
Yeah, that is.
It's almost as if they're not trying to find another coach because they want to keep him there for as long as possible.
All right, let's go over to Drexel. Team had a solid year last year. They seem to always be around the top 4 to 5 to 6 teams in that league, especially under Zach Spiker. But you lose Amari Williams, who is now over at Kentucky and has been God's gift to basketball ever since he got there. And you also lose Justin Moore, and that's Loyola, right, Sam?
Yes.
Loyola, another good player. Let's start here, Pat. What do you think of Drexel? CAA is kind of interesting because you got UNC Wilmington losing a key player, you got Charleston losing a coach and some key players. So the league's, to me, wide open.
Yeah, I don't think it's Drexel that will win it. You lose one of the biggest impact players in the league in Amari Williams to Kentucky. That being said, they do have a really intriguing incoming freshman who I was able to watch at the Prep National Championship this year. Ralph Akuda from Hargrave Military Academy. Huge center. That being said, I don't know how old he is. He is really, really old. I think that he's an old cat, but he's listed at 7'1", 265. I think he's bigger than that. I think he's more around 280, maybe 290. Clemson Adamwayan, who is at South Kent, another intriguing forward. I don't think that they'll make a big impact now, but I think maybe a year, 2 years down the line, we could really see Drexel as more of a force in the CAA than we'll be this year. Justin Moore leaving. He was rather inefficient, but I'm not going to pin that on him because Zach Spiker offenses aren't exactly, Danny Hurley offenses, right? Like it's not the same thing. They're not inducive to scoring as much. But yeah. I don't think that this is a year where we can expect Drexel to make a lot of noise in the CAA and the Big Five.
Yeah, I think
real quick, Sam, before you get into everything, I just want to mention Josh Reed, who I don't know if he'll play at all this year for them or even a little bit.
I was going to mention Josh Reed.
Okay, yeah, he's an Archbishop Wood kid, played with Jaleel Bethia. He was kind of the guy for that team that when, and don't get me wrong, Bethia could score 40 on any given night in high school. He was kind of the guy on that team that when Bethia was kind of just playing out of kind of getting in the way of his teammates, he was sort of that calming influence that makes the right play. Good get for Drexel.
Yeah.
Second team all City of Basketball Love. So that's the second City of Basketball Love shout out on the show already. Averaged 19 a game with 8 rebounds a game as a 6'3" guard. This article says he shot 61% from the floor. I mean, if he's able to do anything close to that at Drexel, that would be big. They do also have 2 JUCO guards in Deuce Drake and Kevin Vanderhorst. Not really sure what to think about either of those guys. And then Victor Panov, who was originally committed to Lemoyne, is another JUCO pickup that they brought in. Had a really solid season last year. Yame Butler is going to step into a bigger role. I thought he was pretty solid last year. And Kobe McGee, who got better as the year went on, or at least towards the middle of the season, he played really well. He can impact the game on both ends. He's going to play a bigger role. Garfield Turner. They were actually really good in Garfield Turner's minutes last year with Amari Williams off the floor. So that it might not be quite as huge of a drop-off as it might seem. Obviously, Williams is much better than Garfield Turner, but Garfield Turner is a really solid big man, good size, can really, really play good defense on the inside.
And someone that obviously not on the roster anymore, big loss, Luke House.
Yes.
Luke House not single-handedly, at least on the offensive side, beat Villanova last year in the Big Five class.
Luke House and Mate Okrus were two
Yes.
terrific offensive players last year that really carried that offense through the lean times and kept them afloat. I think those are two big losses. They're going to be a much more defensive-oriented team this year. They were.
Isn't out
That's their identity.
of the common for Zach Spiker's teams.
I think they could be a top half, maybe a little bit higher than that CAA team, but that would also be a really nice season for this group. A lot of question marks.
All right, let's go. Let's do Villanova last. So we'll go over to Penn now, who losing some players, but there's some context to this. Tyler Perkins didn't play a ton last year. He's out. And then Clark Slagert, Clark Slagert, who's on the way to USC, played a key role for them last year. However, Perkins missed some time and Slagert also missed some time. So there's some not like a huge concern losing either of those two, in my opinion. Like, I think they returned some key players too, but this team was 213th last year in KenPom, and they were bad a lot of the time because their good players missed time. And so now that got younger players more experience, they do return both Sam Brown and Nick Spino. So they have some younger players who I think can step in and make an impact here. Sam, I'll start with you. What do you think about this Penn team?
I think they'll be better than last year, but worse than they were 2 years ago. And I think that's where a lot of people stand on this Penn team. It was a Murphy's Law effect once Clark Slagert went down last year in that Houston game. In the first 5 minutes, they couldn't catch a break at the beginning of Ivy League play. They lost a bunch of close games. They didn't really have the ability to finish late. Then once Slagert came back, he was really doing all that he could. He was playing pretty well, but the other guys, the wheels had kind of fallen off at that point. They'd been really playing so much more than really they expected to. And I like Sam Brown a lot. Comes back for his sophomore year. Can really, really shoot the crap out of the ball as a 6'3" guard, 42% from three last year. And then Ethan Roberts can also shoot the crap out of the ball. He comes in.
Pat?
Yeah, I think Nick Spinoso is this team's obviously the most important player on this year's Penn team.
What just happened? You went to Pat and I was still talking.
You cut out.
You cut out.
Oh, Pat,
keep going. Finish what you were going to say. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Ethan Roberts had a really strong. Did you get the Ethan Roberts part?
Yeah, I heard you say Ethan Roberts, and then we lost you.
Mm-hmm. Ethan Roberts had a really strong freshman season at Army 2 years ago. Transferred to Drake, didn't play, but in that freshman season, 113 offensive rating, shot 40% from three on 130 attempts. Dylan Williams is a JUCO from Triton. Not many JUCOs go into the Ivy League, but this is a player that had some big numbers. And again, it definitely points to an offensive slant, which this team will absolutely have. I don't think they will defend quite as well as they will need to in order to be at the top of the Ivy League. Because, I mean, again, you look at Dylan Williams, he's 5'11", you look at the Triton team, they were a heavy offensive slant. And I just think that there might not – I'm not sure that there's enough defensive-oriented pieces on this team to make them an Ivy League contender. But I would not be surprised if they push for that 4 spot in the tournament, because I think the 4 spot is pretty open. Mm-hmm. And could finish anywhere from 4 to 6, I think, next year.
Yeah. Pat, you have anything to add on that?
Going on Spinoso, because
Spinoso is a really intriguing player because he's their best rebounder. Was last year, out rebounded Eric Dixon heavily in Penn's win over Nova. An aspect of his game that doesn't get talked about enough is his passing. And I think
it's talked about all the time. I think it's the first thing people mention when you think about Nick Spinoso.
I think about his rebounding, and I think that he's a versatile guy. I think he's kind of a Swiss Army knife on offense. And I think that they should run that offense, not necessarily through him, but have the ball in his hands a majority of the time. And I'd feel comfortable with him making a lot of the important decisions on offense and sort of running it. I've known about him and watched him for a really long time, so I'm kind of more biased in what I think of his game. But I do think that he could be one of the best players in the Big Five this year. And I think that people will look at the Penn roster from the outside in and say, like, oh, you lost Clark Slacker to USC and you lost Tyler Perkins to Nova. How could you possibly be better? And like Jonathan said, and what you said, Sam, once they got hurt, their season kind of went off the rails, and that
they were solid.
They were good. They were pretty good at the beginning of the year. So if they're able to stay healthy and avoid these unlucky bounces and close losses, they'll find themselves in the Ivy League tournament. Obviously, that 4 spot that you're talking about, it's pretty wide open. So hopes should be up in University City for this year.
So I'll speak a little about this team because they do have 3 Chicagoland area kids, as do a lot of Ivy League teams. The league is just littered with those kids from that area.
It's half Chicago dudes and half NEPSAC dudes.
Yeah.
Literally.
This is big for us, Jonathan. This is all we have, man.
Yeah, I know.
we should just have you two do the Ivy League preview. Haven't watched
it would just be me
in 3 years, but you guys could do it.
It would just be me talking about people that played at Northfield Mount Herman 3 years ago. That's about it. And the
Danny Wolf.
Yep, Danny Wolf. I'm trying to
Chicagoland area.
What's his name? Like Rowan Brumbaugh played there too, right?
Yeah, Rowan. Yeah,
I have no idea where that kid is now, but like,
is he at Georgetown?
He was at Georgetown. Yeah,
Rowan. I think SMU.
Yes, right. He's at S. So he was committed to Northwestern.
He was committed to Texas.
Flipped to Texas?
Oh no, Tulane, not SMU.
Yeah, Tulane. He flipped to Texas in like February of his senior year. Went to Texas, didn't play. Went to Georgetown. They were horrible, and now he's at Tulane.
Yeah. So just to go off of what you guys have been saying, Penn's got 3 Chicagoland area kids. Ethan Roberts was really, really good at Army his freshman year, so I would expect he's going to play a lot for this team. Nick Polanowski was kind of forced into a bigger role last year than I thought he was going to play, simply because of some of the injuries they had. But he's a 6'6" kid, not ultra athletic or anything like that, but really can shoot it. Like he's not going to handle the ball for you. Like he's a little undersized for the position, but he will shoot 45% from 3 over the course of the season. And then the last one, AJ Levine. I'm going to be honest. The thing with Clark Slacher, I'm not really sure why USC took him. Like, he is one of the worst defenders that I watched in college basketball last year. Like cannot guard anybody. And, you know, Penn's bringing in a freshman named AJ Levine from over at York, which is like around like Elmhurst, Illinois, I believe it technically is in. Kid can guard. Kid plays really, really hard. And he's a 3-level scorer. I bet we see him on the floor a decent bit this year for Penn.
Yeah, Clark, he was good. There were times where, especially against LaSalle, where it was give me the ball, everybody get out of the way, I'm going to shoot it. And you really saw that against LaSalle last year. And it I guess what Musselman must have saw was, he can really score it in bunches. When he refused to pass the ball, he could score it, but whether he could score consistently like that in an actual offense is different.
Yeah, I think this kid going to USC was probably a mistake. Like, yeah, he's going to be buried on that depth chart, and it's so weird because like even when Arkansas has even Arkansas's guards are typical when Musselman was there were like longer, rangier players, and that's kind of what he did this year at USC with Des Claude and St. Thomas. Like they could theoretically start all guys that are 6'6" or taller. So let's go. Last one, Villanova did make my top 100. I know they made Sam's, as they rightfully should, because top 100 is a lot of teams. But this is a team that
at least it's a lot of teams when it comes to a program like Villanova.
This is a team that I don't know how narrowly they missed the NCAA tournament last year, but that DePaul game, even though they won it, was the end-all be-all for them.
Oh god,
They did not live up to
they
the
should have lost.
expectations.
They should not have won that game.
They did not live up to the expectations that I set
They were
for them.
down by 22 at home to Creighton in the first 10 minutes in the last game of the regular season.
Yeah.
This team did not meet the expectations that I set, the expectations that Sam set, or the expectations that anyone set. And because of it, Kyle Neptune is probably coaching for his job this year with a roster that I'm not a huge fan of. I don't think they're that deep. I think they have a lot of players that probably need the ball in their hand, or at least and they have like no impact player to me, at least high impact player that's over the height of 6'8".
Yeah, I think Nova went for names this offseason. They went for the get that'll be like, oh,
they just needed to fill out a roster and threw a bunch of NIL money at guys that probably aren't that good.
They went for the Twitter value so people would quote tweet and say, this is a great get. But then when you look below the surface, Tyler Perkins in a Villanova offense or Villanova style offense, I don't think will be that good. I know he thrives in the mid range and plays off 2 feet like somewhat well, but he's going to dribble the ball 18 times a possession. Like once he gets the ball, it's not coming out. Wooga Poplar was a great ad, but again, they're small. He's 6'5". I think they're only like big, like physically big impact player is Eric Dixon. That's it.
I would like to say I think Matt Hodge is going to be a terrific player.
He's good
down the road.
Yeah.
Huge fan of Matt Hodge as a prospect. Really good player down in South Jersey in high school. Can do a lot of things. But yeah, Jameer Brickus, I mean, I is the idea with him that like you're just gonna post him up as a 5'11" guard in the Big East. It barely worked in the A10. There's a reason LaSalle finished where they did in the A10. Sure, he might be good at it, but I don't think it's going to work. I like Wooga. I like Perkins. How's that dynamic going to work together? Eric Dixon might be the best player in the city, but the group around him is just not good enough. And again, I know they wanted Eric Dixon to come back. I know Eric Dixon wanted to come back and play the 4. I think I would rather play Hodge at the 4, Dixon at the 5 than Dixon at the 4, Boyaki at the 5.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Kyle Neptune has the way he's ran this Villanova program, and especially the offense, is almost
Into
a caricature. What's that?
Into a ditch. That's where he's ran.
Well, into a ditch, but it's a caricature of what Jay Wright had.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Because he takes like the hallmarks of it. Jay Wright had his post-up guards, Jalen Brunson, Colin Gillespie, like Ryan Arcidiacono, guys that could play out of the post as guards. And he takes that and amplifies it by a million and forgets about everything else. The offense last year when Justin Moore played was give Justin Moore the ball. He's going to back it. He's going to back his guy down for 15 seconds, pass out, try and relocate, and step into a 20-foot mid-range jumper that would miss off the front iron.
So,
like it was, that's Nova fans. My favorite thing. Oh, Nova's back. They are not. Make the NCAA tournament under Kyle Neptune before we get to that point as far as discourse goes. I think they're in for another really bad year.
So before we get out of here, I'll add my 2 cents. I think a lot of the players they took in the portal like are fine in certain roles. I don't trust Kyle Neptune to get them in those certain roles at all. And I'll just say another thing on this. First, I know they were injured last year, but like Wooga Poplar comes in to like basically replace what's the guard's name at Miami that I'm blanking on right now? Isaiah Wong, and he basically is like supposed to be the Isaiah Wong replacement. Isn't nearly as good. Those were probably pretty high expectations that were unrealistic. But my overall point is this was a Villanova team last year that looks like they quit like in every single one of their losses. Like it just like didn't look like they were playing hard. It didn't look like they cared. And your answer for that in the portal is to bring in a guy, albeit was on an injured team, but lost their final 10 games of the season and basically quit. I mean, they lost 10 in a row. 3 of them were to Boston College. That should get you relegated. Like, that's your solution? I mean, I just don't buy what Villanova is really doing here. And I unfortunately think this is Kyle Neptune's last year as the coach there.
Just look at where the transfers played last year. Miami was bad. Penn was bad. LaSalle was bad. Fresno State, for some reason, they took a transfer from Fresno State. They were bad. Their coach got fired.
Yeah, there are like 3 teams that are like this in high major basketball. Villanova is one of them.
Villanova's not quite as bad as a couple other teams.
Yeah.
I'm looking right at you, buddy, Kevin Keats. I'm looking right at you.
All right, you guys got anything to add before we got out of here?
Last year I correctly predicted the placement games, who would be where. I think this year we'll see a rematch of the Big 5 championship. I think it's Temple and St. Joe's. I think St. Joe's wins. The third place game, I think it's going to be LaSalle and Villanova. And in the last place game, which will not be very attended, will be Drexel and Penn. That's my official
They should play
prediction.
that game at the Daskalakis Athletic Center.
which is the rightful cathedral of college
Cathedral of
basketball.
college
It took us
basketball.
42 minutes and 25 seconds, but we got there. Also, just a reminder, Villanova finished 6th in this last year. They went.
Villanova finished 6th in a competition called the Big 5.
Yes. And their fans left as soon as Amari Williams had the game-winning block. Like, as soon as the ball hit the floor. I have a video of their fans. I have a video of their fans
I know.
storming out. Storming. They're too worried about their SAT scores, which they chanted at St. Joe's last year. As they were down by 20.
Sam, you want to take us home? Sam,
If you came to hear about Tyler Self and what he's doing, you came to the right place. If you came to hear about LIU, you came to the right place. And if you came to hear about the latest happenings with Caleb Grill, you came to the right place. This is season 5, episode 17, coming to you live, not from the Cathedral of College Basketball, but talking about the Cathedral of College Basketball, the Big 5 preview with Pat Dallahan. We will see you next time.